Hello and welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 71, brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear. Today I'm catching up with my buddy Kevin Vistisen of the Deer Hunter Podcast, and we're covering our evolution as deer hunters and much, much more. So stay tuned. All right, what is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you. Welcome back, and you are listening to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. Hope everyone is doing well out there. Did get a chance to get into the timber this weekend. Finally, it's been a little bit of a wait, but did do my first official velvet card pull. Went and checked some cameras at the newest property. And I'm happy to say there's 2 deer on the property that I'm pretty excited about. Now we'll have to kind of wait and see how things kind of pan out, but so far so good. Liking what I'm seeing. It's a smaller property, so it's not going to have, a ton of velvet images necessarily on it. It's not necessarily a size of a property that's going to hold a ton of deer. They kind of use it as a transitional property, which is fine by me. I tend to get most of my better pictures of my more mature deer as September kind of hits. I think I've kind of mentioned this in the past too. Summer's a little slow on this property for buck activity. It usually picks up in September, and then October I get a lot of daylight movement, which is, I guess in terms of hunting, it doesn't make for necessarily great and flattering velvet pictures per se, but it definitely gives me the better opportunity during hunting season to have a chance at a decent deer. So did some of that. Also did some spraying. Got one of the fields, or one of the areas that I'm going to be putting in a fall plot. Got that sprayed this past weekend. So now we'll just have a couple weeks of a process to kind of get that into the ground. And hopefully I'll get timely rain at the same time after I get the seed in the ground. That'll help me out as we push toward fall and kind of get ready for hunting season. And outside of that, I did kind of select a few trees, trim up a few trees on this property as well, because this will be the first year that I actually hunt it. Last year I just kind of monitored it with game cameras, and I think my dad may have hunted it maybe a day or two. And so really, I've kind of done my assessment from, spring and winter scouting last year and this year, and then hanging trail cameras for a year and just kind of watching them. And what has been a big help for me is using, video mode. The Exodus trail camera has a great video mode, the Lift 2. The video is pretty killer on it. And that's been one of the biggest helps for me, is really kind of running my cameras on video mode to understand, how deer are moving. Pictures do a great job. It can be super helpful, but there, for my opinion at least, there's no, I don't know if this isn't necessarily the gospel here, but I really like to kind of see, especially whenever I'm not familiar with the property, I like to see the actual movement of the deer if I can, because I want to kind of see what direction they're coming from and what direction they're kind of exiting, because it'll tell me a lot more, especially whenever you kind of start putting those pieces together with times of day. And now that I hopefully have a year of data on at least one of the bucks, it kind of starts to help me kind of map out where he might be bedding, during the early season, where he might be bedding during, when the fall hits and when pre-rut hits and stuff like that. So I really like to see the video images, because it gives me a better sense as to how deer are moving. So I did that this past weekend. It was a scorcher, but got all the work done. So hopefully, here the next couple of weeks we'll have some busy weekends and get the seed planted and kind of get ready for fall. But today I have a really cool show. A buddy of mine, Kevin Vistisen, he runs the Deer Hunter Podcast. He and I get together every so often and chat. We've actually chatted a fair amount, either via text and through phone calls and stuff like that. And when you get the two of us together, we tend to kind of go on for a while, just because we really like to, we really appreciate each other's perspectives on hunting, and not just hunting, but a host of topics. And that's what Kevin and I kind of covered today, as we definitely dive into hunting. And, we talk a little bit about how, the podcast, that we each having a podcast, how it has changed us as hunters and how we've evolved over time, and how important that has been to us. And so we talk about that a little bit. We also cover a little bit of CWD conversation. We cover a little bit also some of the things that we've seen in the media recently, from some folks who may be well known, to a degree, and some of the opinions that they've shared on a couple different platforms that might be how should I say, controversial, I guess. And so we cover that a little bit, and we talk just a little bit about hunting's place overall, and how we're doing in terms of hunters being a steward of that heritage. I think you guys will really enjoy the conversation with Kevin. I always really do. I will make note that I did have some microphone troubles. As I'd mentioned in a previous podcast, I have a new family member in the form of a four-legged furry black lab, and he made his introduction to my podcasting microphone this past week. So I had a few technical issues at the upfront, but I don't think it's too awfully terrible. I did get it kind of corrected at about the 22, 23 minute mark. So if the audio at the upfront is something that you that's bothering you, you can absolutely kind of fast forward or jump to that 22-minute mark, and then I've kind of got everything figured out from that point forward. So with that, we'll take a quick second to talk about our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. First and foremost, we are brought to you by Wicked Tree Gear, the longest lasting, fastest cutting, toughest tree trimming equipment you have ever used. Simply put, the toughest saws on earth. How tough are they? Tough enough to come with a lifetime warranty. And right now, when you visit wickedtreegear.com, use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and get a 20% discount on your Wicked purchase. Also, don't forget they're still running the sweepstakes, where every purchase you make with Wicked Tree Gear, Tecumani Seed, or with Glacier Coolers provide you one entry into that sweepstakes to win a hunt with Whitetail Heaven Outfitter, Hunter's Choice of Ohio, Kentucky, or Indiana hunts. So be sure to make that purchase soon if you've been putting it off recently. We're also brought to you by Exodus Outdoor Gear. The new Exodus Trek is a byproduct of all consumer voices who have been excited about what Exodus trail cameras have to offer, but just can't fit a $200 camera in their budget, and that's okay. A budget-friendly camera backed by the industry's leading warranty is now here. The Trek comes in at $145. It has the same proprietary shell design as the Lift Series camera, same 5-year warranty and unmatched customer service policies, 0.7-second trigger speed, photo, video, time-lapse, and hybrid modes, all with a simple single-line backlit LED display. You get also approximately 20,000 images on one set of lithium batteries. If you'd like to learn more about Exodus trail cameras, check them out at ExodusOutdoorGear.com. And if you like what you see, save yourself $20 by using the promo code TRUTH at checkout. We're also brought to you by Tecumani Seed. Everything's bigger in Texas. No matter if you're in the South, Midwest, or the Northeast, Tecumani Seed has your food plot needs covered. Visit Tecumani.com and check out their product selector tool to help pick the right seed for your food plots. Use the promo code TRUTH at checkout and save 20%. And we are also brought to you by Glacier Coolers, simply the world's finest. Whether you're hunting, camping, or fishing, you'll enjoy smarter design, stronger construction, and superior insulation of Glacier Coolers. Visit them at glaciercoolers.com, promo code TRUTH at checkout, and save 20%. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get Kevin on the line. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I am joined by a good buddy of mine. Many of you probably know him from his Deer Hunter podcast. I'm joined by my buddy Kevin Vistisen by way of Michigan. What's going on, buddy?
Scrambling, Clint.
Scrambling. You're a little hot under the collar.
Yeah, just fighting to stay above water.
I hear you, man. You've been getting slayed at work.
Yeah, work's crazy. And deer season's fast approaching, and family responsibilities, and heading out to Colorado for a week here at the end of July. So
nice.
It's just it's a storm.
Nice. What's going on in Colorado?
My wife scheduled the trip actually a while back, so she could attend the Outdoor Retailer Expo.
Okay, cool.
There, that had been done, for the years past, I believe it was in Utah, if I'm correct. And then they moved it from there to Colorado. I think this might be the first year that it is in Colorado, but it's in. So that's the reason why it got scheduled. And then my wife and I have been married for 5 years, and the last time we took a vacation together as a couple was our honeymoon 5 years ago.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. For sure.
Yeah, so we're kind of killing two birds with one stone, and I basically have the week to do hunting related things with people that are in the Colorado area. So I'm pretty stoked.
Nice, man. Yeah. Dude, I love Colorado. That's one of the places Megan and I actually at one point looked at moving to, when we were considering a move back to Pennsylvania. It was Denver areas where I guess we were really kind of looking, and I had an opportunity to take a gig in Boulder and did not take it, and ended up, of course, in Philadelphia instead, which was probably for the best, just because we have young daughters, as you know, and she can be around her grandparents and stuff like that. But Colorado is definitely one of those places where we both kind of point to that maybe one day we'll make it there. So I'm going to say that I'm 100% jealous that you're going to Colorado this time of year. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm packing everything that I need for a week in my Kafaru backpack,
Nice.
and that's my travel luggage. And I hope to hook up with those guys when I'm over there.
Nice.
And yeah, I want to take that backpack. Man, that thing's got more options than Netflix. So
Nice.
I want to firsthand go in there and have Aaron Snyder show me, how all the features and the adjustments work. I've had the thing for 6 months now. I've got a pretty good handle on it, but with something like that, a guy like him is going to show you a couple things that you had no idea that the thing was capable of doing or being used in that manner. So I'm kind of excited about that. And then another thing that's cool that I just set up yesterday, I've been talking back and forth with him for a while, but it's actually scheduled now on the calendar. Is when I'm over there, I'm going into Rocky Mountain Specialties and meeting with gentleman Tom Klum Sr., and I'm going to get archery lessons for the afternoon. So
Nice. Now is that traditional?
yeah, he's a traditional archer. So, the foundation of archery obviously carries through no matter what you're shooting, longbow, recurve, compound.
Right.
So I figured that's a guy to learn from.
Right.
And
yeah.
I've never had any coaching ever. Self-taught myself how to shoot a bow and spend some time at some archery ranges when I was younger, but actually have someone that knows what they're doing sit down with me for an afternoon is going to be unbelievably valuable to me. So,
oh yeah, man. I mean, that was kind of how, I got started the same way, where I just picked up a bow and started shooting. And it wasn't until, I started really kind of talking with our mutual buddy, Greg Litzinger or whatever, and realized that he lived as close to me as he does. And, of course, he's a good dude, and we started going to the range together once in a while. And, he didn't, I guess, suggest any tips right away per se. I asked him. He wasn't going to be forward and say, hey, I think you could change a couple things. It's not his style. And we went out and shot the one day, and I just asked him, I was like, hey, while we're shooting the course, not while I'm, at the bags or whatever, not while we're going through the course, because just kind of watch me as I shoot the entire course. And when we're done, I'd like to get back to the bags, and you just let me know if there's things you see that I'm just way off that's going to help me be more consistent. And there were a couple things, some small things that he pointed out that, there's small things to correct, but they make a huge difference. As, we all know with archery, it's like the smallest details are the ones that are, oftentimes make or break, your consistency. And then, of course, a kill shot versus a wounded and tracking or a miss, so.
yeah, what did I hear? Somebody say a difference between a kill shot and a death shot, like a lethal shot, something that's going to kill the deer, or, a death shot. And I don't think that's exactly how they worded it, but where
Right.
you are just 10 ringing, the thing's going,
Right.
the thing's going 50 yards if it's lucky. And that's what I'm looking for. It's been 2 seasons now for me. I'll be going into year 3. I haven't killed a deer with archery equipment in the last couple of years, so I got a touch of an itchy trigger finger. And a goal of mine going into this season is to put a deer down with archery equipment. I don't, if it's my recurve or my compound. Either way, I don't much care, but
Right.
I want to get I'm just jacked up about bow hunting, man. I'm falling to pieces here. It's these cold, crisp morning. We've had some interesting weather here. It's been really hot, but we've had cool nights. And in the
Yeah.
evenings and in the morning, man, you can just feel it in the air that it's coming.
Yeah, I think we're just getting a touch of what you're talking about now, because the past, like it was just Africa hot. It felt like for like 2 weeks. Um, and then I went on vacation and went north. Went up toward Cape Cod, and so it was a little cooler up there as you got a little further north. But came back and the weather had changed a little bit, which was nice. And we were definitely getting those kind of. It's getting into like the low 60s, maybe even getting into like the 50s. I think last night my wife said it was going to be like 50 degrees. The overnight low. Going outside in the morning, it's nice and kind of cool still when I take the dog out, and there's some dew on the grass, and it smells like how you get that smell when the weather starts to change a little bit right before
Yeah.
hunting season.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like I start getting that in the nostrils, and then I get the what I like to refer to as the fuckets and don't want to go to work.
Oh yeah, that's dude.
Yeah,
I definitely have that issue.
yeah,
I was talking with a buddy yesterday, and he said over the summer he has a hard time. When work wants him to do any overtime or Saturdays, all he wants to do is be on the boat. And I feel him there.
yeah.
But I can manage the summer times. But when the fall comes around, man, like, oh man, it is just a constant struggle for me to stay focused.
Oh, I know, dude. It's like I daydream all day about how could I possibly create a scenario for myself where I don't mind working. Like working's not the issue. You know what I mean? It's more the hours in which I'm asked to work, I think or having the flexibility. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
Oh
inevitably
yeah.
it's like, of course, off on the weekend, and that's when I'm going to get terrible weather or whatever. It's not going to be a good day to hunt, and inevitably the best days to go hunt are going to be the days in which I got to be at work. So that's kind
Yeah.
of that's how it
It's a
works.
it's a struggle. That is tough when you walk out or you look at the weather, on a
Yeah,
Tuesday when you got to get up and go to work the next morning and you see a 10-degree temp drop
high
and a
pressure.
north wind, 5 to 10 mile an hour north wind, and you're just like, oh, it's going to be this crisp, quiet, calm
Yeah,
morning, everything you could ask for, and deer are going to be on their feet, and you're like, man, if I could just go hunting.
yeah. Those are the days I completely stay off of Instagram and Facebook because I don't want to know anything about
Right.
what anyone else is doing. It'll just drive me crazy. But man, I wanted to ask you, because of course we're both podcasters, right? That's one of the things, and that's kind of how you and I met. It's funny because I know I had you on when we did a DIY report in the fall, and you were reporting in from Michigan, in terms of what you were seeing and stuff. But the backstory, how you and I kind of met was, we were you were thinking of starting the deer hunting, the Deer Hunter podcast, and we started just kind of talking about different approaches and stuff like that, and that's kind of how we struck up our friendship and relationship, which is cool because it's different ways that podcasting kind of bring folks together. And without podcasting, it's like you and I probably would have never met in a million years, by chance. So
No, no.
but it's one of those things where it's like I'm always interested to talk to guys that either on the show or just when we run into each other out and about, whether it's at trade shows or whatever, that are podcasting too, because I'm always curious to see how it's impacted them, right, in a multitude of ways. So I'm curious with you, man, like I'll just start with the broad question, right? The broad level question is, do you think, as you've started your podcast and you're a year in, so congratulations on your year anniversary.
Thanks.
Yeah, as you're in a year, right? Do you feel like it has changed you at all? And when I say changed you, not like the fiber of who you are per se, but more of like your approach, how you hunt. Like, well, I guess we'll start there.
Oh yeah, man. In so many ways. And going back to what you were just saying, uh, we started communicating because I was a fan of your podcast. I listened to your podcast. I enjoyed your podcast. I started following you on social media. And when I decided that I was going to take a go at it, I, at one point, was struggling with some audio stuff. And I reached out to you, and like instantly you got back to me, and you were so helpful, man. Like helping me get started and set up. And I'm forever grateful, for
Oh
that.
man, glad to help, brother. That was, yeah. It's there's I don't know. I think when you and I were talking about it, it was like the notion really was like the more voices we have saying the right things and doing the right things, for the right reasons is more important than anything else, so.
Yeah, but it was easy to identify with you, and I don't know if it's older age or that I specifically pay attention to it, but I can tell right away now people that do and don't have egos.
Mm-hmm.
And right away I was able to identify with you with how open you were, that you weren't like a egocentric person. Because a lot of times, well, a guy's reaching out to you for advice to do something that potentially you could identify as being a competitive,
Right.
competitive thing. And for you to just say, oh yeah, here, do this, do this, do this,
Right.
And that's how I operate too. I'm here to help and grow. And podcasting has done so much for me. There's a lot to be said for, and you'll hear people say this. If you want to grow as a person, surround yourself with people that you want to identify with, and that'll do so much for you. Yeah. And when you're podcasting, you build this network and you socialize with these group of people, and you become friends with people that you would have never, that you never would have otherwise. And so you're essentially surrounding yourself by these people, whether it's the people that you have on the show, or the people that you reach out to for help, or the guys and girls that tune in every week. Mm-hmm. And you surround yourself with those people, and they're obviously share the same passion that you do, or they wouldn't be involved. Mm-hmm. And man, it's just been a crazy year. I feel I'm in a lot better place as a deer hunter without question. I mean, right. Man, if we're just talking about deer hunting, period, just for an example, like last spring when I went scouting, mm-hmm. I hiked 16 miles through the big woods in northern Michigan.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I accomplished nothing. I did not find one spot that I deemed worthy of going through the work to get to be worth traveling back out to hunt. I mean, anything that even had a little bit of potential would be such an investment in time and effort to hunt, that it was just man, that was a bummer. So I guess two things. I scratched off a huge chunk of woods that I would never hunt.
Right.
But two, I was a little bit aggravated that I invested that time and that effort. Come a year later, I went by myself. That's one thing I figured out too. If I need to get work done, I got to be alone. I can't take friends because I lose focus. So I went one day. I got up early. I made coffee on the road with a jet boil when I got to the area that I was looking to scout, and I threw my backpack on and I hit it. And I hit 8 miles that day, and I ended up prepping 6 locations to go back and hunt this fall that are all extremely promising. And I hung 4 trail cameras that I'll revisit probably early September. I'll go pull them just to get a general idea of deer numbers and what deer are in the areas. But in one day, I was tenfold more efficient than I was in the same day a year ago, covering half the ground. And it's just taken the advice from people that I've communicated with and paying closer attention and adjusting my mindset. So yeah, man, I don't know that anything will have ever impacted my life like starting this venture has.
Right. Yeah, I hear you, man. I mean, I think for me, it's been, oh man, it's hard to figure out where to start really. You know what I mean? Because it's done pretty much a 180, from how I used to hunt to how I hunt now. It's not even comparable. And you mentioned something there about changing your mindset, and I think that for me was probably the biggest thing, right? It's you always kind of knew, or growing up at least, it's you knew anecdotally what you should be looking for to a degree, right? But it was just, I think my mindset was so much more closed then that I wouldn't allow myself to see what I needed to see, you know? And it's funny because like I've kind of picked up on that in a couple different places, but where it came through the most was like I was talking to a guy on the show the one day, and he started talking about just, you know, hunting aggressively, but not being married to a place or a deer per se. And he does a lot of still hunting to his spots. And even if he has a stand kind of location that he wants to jump on, you know, that he thinks is really promising, if he's still hunting his way to his stand that morning with the perfect conditions for that stand, and he finds hot sign on his way to where he's going, he's stopping and hunting that hot sign. You know what I mean? Like he's that flexible in his plan, that he's willing to do that. And that's something for me that I'm still trying to get better at. I'm not quite there yet. But I think this year I'll be more flexible. That's what kind of doomed me last year in Ohio, was just that not being open-minded enough and being kind of stuck to my plan.
Sure.
You know? All right, folks, we are back. You would think two guys that have about 140 podcast records between the two of us could manage to record together with no challenges, but not the case. Technology. I'm going to go ahead and blame it on the new dog, Kevin. I'm going to say the new dog is the reason why that happened.
You're going to have plenty of stuff. You got a black lab, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have plenty of things to blame on that dog, man.
That's right, man. That's right. Hopefully, you know.
They're troublemakers.
Dude, he's a piece of work, man. He's got a lot of drive. You know, yeah. I had, and the dogs I've had in the past were Rottweilers and English Mastiffs. You know, that's what I, you know, had whenever I lived in Orlando. And then, you know, growing up, I had, you know, typically we had golden retrievers growing up. But this lab, man, he has got some serious drive, and he is quite the escape artist. He's managed to get out of his crate, because I usually crate train until I can trust them, you know, in the house entirely. And he has broken out of that, I think, 5 out of the first 8 times he was in it, he broke out. And I found him like hanging out in the house. So, but I think we might have nipped that. Now I think I've got him kind of comfortable with it to where he's not uncomfortable in the cage anymore. So that's good. And now, as long as he stays in there, he won't eat my microphone, because he ate one microphone and some computer cables to this point. So not bad for like a week and a half's worth of work. I've only had him like a week and a half, and he's managed to do that. So. But I digress. So what were we talking about before we had the dog snafu with the computer and the recording? We were talking about how podcasting has changed our approach to hunting, and we both kind of talked about, you know, some of the ways that it changed us. And I think we were covering or just touching on like the mindset perspective that it has changed. You know, you know, is like one of the things that you had mentioned, which really kind of, I think, became even more, I think, important or apparent to me, was just being open-minded and not being married to a plan. Like, so whenever you're kind of laying out your plan, I know you said, you know, you hit the big woods solo and prepped some areas, you know, do you get kind of married to that scenario that you're kind of laying out your groundwork, you know, or are you pretty flexible when you hit the timber overall?
I'm going to be super flexible this year, because, I mean, I probably scouted, it's hard to say like acreage wise, I guess, but I have so many spots and so many different properties that I'm going to be hunting this year that no, I'm not going to be married to anything at all. And that's one of the biggest things I've been trying to work on, is the mental side of things, is kind of reprogramming my brain, right, and not letting it beat me, because it never fails. You know, I kind of feel like I know what I need to do now, but I have to beat myself and execute that versus reverting to, you know, going an easier route so that I just see deer in general, or put my camera in places where I know I'm going to get photos of big bucks, so that I'm building this like false confidence. Mm-hmm. I really want to get, you know, I I would really, really like to kill a mature deer this year here in Michigan. And in order to do that, I got to basically hunt different than I've hunted for the last 20 years. And I know how to hunt. I know how to go out and, if the objective is to go out and kill a deer, I can do that.
Right.
But if the objective is to go out and kill, a big mature deer that has learned in 4 or 5 years to know how to evade the common hunter, you got to do it differently. And I don't want to beat myself. I feel like I'm going to be my own biggest enemy because I'm going to revert to the way I've done things in the past as soon as my confidence starts slipping. And so much of the hunting, I guess the word is industry, but gear and tactics, so much of it is sold and promised to build like these false expectations. You get these little bumps of confidence from, I think, products, trail camera photos, what's the newest thing that you're going to throw out or have in your pack that's going to bring deer to you. And I'm trying to erase all that and put myself in a position with the things that I've learned to know where to be, where a mature buck might be bedded and where he's going to travel in and out of, that I'm going to have an opportunity to kill one.
Right. Yeah, I think, man, it's the whole confidence thing is big time, right? It's one of those things. It's just like sports, right? If you walk into a match, a wrestling match, a UFC match, football game, whatever it is, and you think that you don't have a chance when you walk out there, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. It's like, I love, that's one of my favorite quotes is, because it's so applicable to so many different things, right? Not just hunting, but just life in general, right? I think I want to touch on the hunting industry thing a little bit, because you had mentioned it, and I think you're 100% right, because I think too many folks start to rely on things that people are promising them, right? And a lot of times, the people who are promising you these things aren't any better of a hunter than you are, in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just happen to work for a company. They got a marketing job, just like, I have a marketing job, but they just happen to work for, Realtree or whomever it might be. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden they've become an expert, because of who they're affiliated with, not because of what they're capable of or, what they've experienced or, whatever the case might be. What I will say is that if you have the confidence and you have the right approach, there are certain products, right? Or there are certain things, products or tactics, right? Whichever, that can help you kind of increase your percentage chance by like 3 to 5%. You know what I mean? Like, it can give you just that 3 to 5 yards or feet or whatever it might be that you need that deer to come closer. That it might be able to help you get that. But it's by no means going to put you in front of the deer. It's not going to do the work for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's still you have to understand how to hunt that animal at the end of the day. There's no, elixir for that. And what I've personally found is, like, where I actually have begun to, I guess, draw the most of my confidence is in my bow. And not per se my bow necessarily, but like my shot, right? Because this year I feel like my shot has come together so much more than any year previously, that I know I switched to a single pin sight, so I'm shooting a single pin set at 25 yards, and I'm shooting it out to 37 yards. It's kind of like my range that I cut off, right? 37 yards, I'm good. But it's like anything 37 yards in and in with that 25 yard pin, if it gives me a window, it's like, I know I can kill it. And so I think for me, that is like a huge confidence booster, is knowing that when the moment comes, that if it's in that area, I'm 100% confident in my shot. Like, I don't have a worry about whether or not I can make that shot or not. Whether it's hard quartering away, hard quartering toward, I practice all those scenarios at odd yardages with that single pin sight. So for me, I think that's where I'm drawing the most of my confidence now, is just knowing that I can get the job done whenever that animal presents.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm trying to get the opportunity. For me, that's my biggest focus point, is having the opportunity to get to that level. It's like Michigan's a tough place, man. Like last year, I've hunted for 20 years. Last year was the first, well, I guess there's been a handful of times I've seen, a couple decent deer here in Michigan, but last year was the first year where I really had an opportunity to kill one. It took me 20 years,
Right.
I don't want to wait another 20 years to kill another one. I want to kill one this year. So,
right.
And that's one thing that I really come to recognize is, and I've talked with people that have, I guess they're highly decorated, public land deer hunters around here. And they'll tell you that deer, the big bucks there, they'll go fully nocturnal. Like, you literally have to be on top of them. You got to know exactly where they are. You got to be going in there with the intent and the confidence that you know exactly where that deer is, and you're going to get within 100 yards of him and get set up quietly. And when he stands up, out of his bed or comes back to his bed, that you've essentially beat him there, or got within his. You've beat his senses. He didn't smell you. He didn't see you. He didn't hear you come in to the zone that he essentially deems safe, because his senses protect him from you coming into that zone. So you got to be a predator at the highest level, man. And it takes some work, and it's going to take some risk and some learning. But I learned some stuff last year, and I feel like this year going into it, my approach is going to be a little bit different. I'm pretty committed to the mobile hunting this year, and I'm going to be, sitting the same tree. I have a couple spots that I just know through history are going to be producers, so I might sit them a handful of times, but for the most part, I'm going to be doing a lot of first sits. And a lot of it's going to be on public land where I may not even see a deer, where in my head I know that I could go to a piece of private land that I have access to, where I'm going to see half a dozen deer, but am I going to see the deer that I want to take?
Right.
So I got to, like I said, focus on not letting myself beat me this season more than anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's see a bunch of deer or see the right deer, right? It's like, I want to see the right deer. That's my approach. It's kind of the same. It's like, I'd rather sit for 3 days and not see a single deer, and know that when I do see one, I have a pretty good chance of it being the one that I want to pull my bow back on,
Sure.
And that was kind of what unfolded in Ohio last year. Was just, we didn't see a lot of deer, but we knew that if we did, it could possibly be, something to get excited about. Just didn't come to fruition. But, it's the same type of thing. Well, where I made my big mistake there was I got married to a plan, and wanted to work my plan, and I just wasn't flexible enough. There was one thing that you mentioned there, though, as you were kind of, talking about your approach for this year, and, and you had mentioned, you didn't want to wait as long to have an opportunity to kill a nice, mature deer again. And, I'm just curious, man, because that statement, it's something that I guess I kind of battled with for a while, and it kind of came to a head last year, was, as you have the podcast, right? And, as you do it more often and stuff like that, it's like, I know that you're experiencing these things too. It's like, people will reach out and ask you some questions and stuff like that. And I always am super appreciative that anyone gives enough of a shit to ask me about my opinion about something, related to hunting. It's like the coolest thing ever. But, do you feel, and I'll give you, I guess, my perspective, but I want to hear yours first. Do you feel any additional pressure or stress related to deer hunting because you have a hunting podcast that's kind of focused on deer hunting? And how does that play into like your approach?
I wouldn't say that I feel any pressure or stress because this whole thing will never have changed who I was before I started it. I love to deer hunt, and I'll say, I've been talking the last couple of minutes about one of my goals this year is to kill a mature deer. There's probably a good chance that I'm going to kill a not mature deer too, because
Right.
I love deer hunting, man. And I'm glad that I don't only need to go out and try to kill some giant antlered old buck to satisfy myself. Maybe at some point that's where I'll be. I don't really see that with myself. I just love being in the woods, and I love the act of drawing a bow on the animal, and I love the act of a perfectly placed shot. And dude, I made deer ribs last weekend.
Dude, I saw a picture of those.
Oh my God. So we're going to get off topic real quick. You're going to have to reel me back, but this is too good to not share. I never did deer ribs before. I've always just thrown them away with the carcass, right?
Yeah.
And I got a bigger buck last year. It had a reasonable amount of meat on the ribs. So I cut the rib racks off. They've been in the freezer. And my wife was like, are you going to do anything with these? They're taking up a lot of room. And I thought, man, 4th of July, what a good opportunity. I'll have the day off. I can commit the time to doing them. So I thawed them out a couple days prior, and I dry rubbed them with whatever you want. I did a barbecue rub, and I let them sit in the fridge on a rack for like 2 days, and basically dry brine them. It soaks all that seasoning in.
Right.
And then I cut them down the middle and made sections of them so that I could fit them in the crock pot. And I put them in the crock pot with beef broth and slow cooked them we went out on the boat. So they slow cooked for like 6 hours. And when it came back in, it was hard to get them out of the crock pot without them falling apart.
Nice.
But I took them out of the crock pot and I threw them on the grill, and it gave them a good char, and then basted them down with some barbecue sauce. Dude, I am not exaggerating when I'm telling you right now. If you give me the choice between next year, if I have to discard my tenderloins or my ribs, it might be the tenderloins that would go in the garbage. They were that good.
Nice.
So what I'm emphasizing is I love eating deer meat. So the whole tag soup thing is never going to be for me.
Right.
I just love deer hunting. I love eating deer. But I've shot a lot of deer, so I'm pretty confident that I can hold off for a reasonable part of the season and try to pursue, getting a bigger deer before I just go flinging arrows everywhere.
Right. Yeah. I think, for me, it's a little bit of both, right? I definitely felt at some point, I was I don't feel like there was outside pressure necessarily. I think it was all that I was making. I was creating the pressure. Part of it was, had a really good hunt in Ohio, 2 years ago, and had a nice deer. And so for me, I'm a goal oriented person, so for me, it was like, whatever it is next, it's like, I want to try to hold out, and go after a mature deer that is equal to, or more mature or bigger. So either or, right? So older than a 3.5-year-old, or bigger than whatever the one I shot scored. And it really kind of bummed me out, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like, I went into last year and I had a target deer that I was after. It was a nice deer, and I knew the property he was on, I was going to have a very limited window of opportunity to hunt him, and before he would get pushed to being nocturnal. And I saw him opening day and didn't get a shot. He just stayed behind some brush, and just, I was where I needed to be. Just, I needed a couple more feet, and was bummed out about it. And I ended up shooting the deer that I ended up shooting because I just kind of said, screw it, man. It's like, I'm going to go shoot whatever deer makes me happy at this point. It's like, I don't want to be stressed out about it. I don't want to be miserable about it. I don't want to, start to, I love to hunt. I love being in the timber. I love just going out and scouting. I love checking trail cameras. I love doing all the farm work on some of the family farms, like to get ready for the season. I love hanging tree stands. Like, I like all of it, and I was like, I don't want this to turn into something that I start to loathe, to a degree. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it's, because, there was this false expectation I was putting on myself because it was, you have the show and people tune in, listen about deer hunting. If I'm not able to produce at a reasonable level, then why the hell should anyone listen to me? Which was a completely wrong way to think about it. Right. And so I had to kind of check myself and kind of reevaluate why I was, what the fun aspects of it were for me, and kind of recalibrate and refocus on those things. So it's like I stopped taking any of the camera equipment, like all the filming stuff. I started leaving it all at home, and just kind of going out in a more like minimalist approach, just whatever I needed to get into the tree stand and have a set. That was what I started doing, and it paid off with, killing a deer. One I was super stoked to, shoot, and it's definitely changed. That deer has changed. I'm looking at the European mount right now, and it's by far not the biggest deer I've ever shot. Not even the biggest one I've shot in Pennsylvania. But that deer probably will do more for me in terms of how I approach hunting than any of the other deer that I've ever had an opportunity to kill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like it helped you rewind and realize why you started this and why you're doing it to begin with. And, for me, I guess, right when I started this, I made no qualms about saying like, hey, follow this platform if you want to be the best deer hunter in the world. It was more of like, if this is going to be a contest to have as much fun as you possibly can doing this, then this platform will be in the running, because I just enjoy deer hunting so much, and I can share that with people. And if the end goal was to kill the biggest deer and try to impress people and think that they should listen to everything that I say and take it as gospel, well, I would need to relocate. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'd have to go out to, Iowa or Kansas or one of those states. But if you can just focus on enjoying it and passing that along to other people, I mean, that's what's going to bring people into this lifestyle, is showing them that it's fun, and it'll overall increase their quality of life, And I feel like I got off track, and I knew that was going to happen as soon as I started talking about the deer ribs, but they were that good.
They were that good.
To say, people say, oh, there's no meat on there. Dude, it took me 3 sittings to eat one side of those ribs, and I can eat.
Nice.
And there was a lot there. But what I was getting at is that I'll always just want to share with people that, like, this is a great lifestyle, and you can have a lot of fun doing this. You can benefit your mental health, your physical health. I mean, there's no arguments about it. Good luck going to the grocery store and buying better food. It's not going to happen. People almost will joke about it now because so many people hashtag organic and whatnot. But I mean, man, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, I didn't just recently get into it because it was a popular tagline.
Doesn't get much more organic. You know what I mean? So
no, it absolutely doesn't. And so, I'm going to continue to evolve, and people that want to do the same are just going to try to talk to people that, have done more than I am, and try to grow with them. And the other thing that I was going to say is that, man, I keep losing my track of mind, because as soon as you brought up the food thing, the deer rib just screwed my whole night up.
Right.
Honestly, man.
I got to get some of these ribs in, man. I'm just saying.
I got home late and have not eaten dinner yet, and so I'm just sitting here starving, drinking my beer. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. I'm just tore up about deer hunting. Whether it's a doe this year, some of my goals are to my goal is to make a clean kill and go out and enjoy it. And I'm very conscious to the fact that if I go out this year and I kill the new state record whitetail, there's probably a good chance that my podcast is going to do better.
Right.
But it doesn't put pressure on me. I don't feel any pressure by that because that's not why I got into doing this. But I'm conscious of the fact that, yes, that would benefit, my platform, and it's a driving factor without question. But it's not the end all be all for me. It never was, and it never will be.
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I had to get back to last year, was just kind of recognizing that, my intention whenever I kind of begun this voyage, it's like I didn't know what it was going to be or what it was going to do. I didn't know if I was going to last 3 episodes. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't have any plans beyond like, hey, I'm going to do a podcast and just see what happens. And that was really kind of the goal, like in starting it, was that I was living in an area that hunting wasn't really popular, in a metro area outside of, the suburbs of Philadelphia. And I was really looking for a way to try to connect with people who were into hunting also. That was really like what it was. It's like, I need to find some people who I can talk to, because I'm clearly not going to meet them in the type of field that I work in, for the most part. And so that was really the kind of driving force. And then it kind of became, from that, it kind of became, once I realized I was going to be doing this longer than maybe I had first anticipated, it was, how can I start to like help folks? Like if people need more information, can I help kind of share more information or share my experiences or my perspectives or whatever the case might be? And then this year it morphed yet again. And it was really after, what we talked about with that deer. And whenever I say he changed like my approach to things in a very impactful way, it's like it wasn't just how I'm going to approach hunting. It's kind of how I approach being a steward of hunting, for lack of a better way to put it, and so this year one of my goals was to take a new adult hunter out into the timber and introduce them to hunting for the first time. And I'll tell you what, man, there's as jacked up as you're getting about the ribs, I don't know if I can match the ribs, but I will say this, that I don't know that I've ever been more excited to take someone to go hunting than I was when I took my buddy Trevor with me for the first time and put a shotgun in his hand and said, we're going turkey hunting, get your license, take your tests, and we're going to hit the timber, and I'm going to introduce you to the outdoors and let you experience why I love this so much. And to watch his face and just like the conversations that we would have afterwards, like he's in it. Like that's it. Like he wants to deer hunt now. He wants to go goose hunt this winter with me, taking duck hunting and goose hunting. He wants to go do rifle. He wants to rifle hunt this year at the family farm for deer season. He would like to try that. So he's kind of all in on it, man. And I don't know that there's anything more gratifying than, helping him, number one, have that outlet, but then also at the same time creating another household where he's a hunter, and at minimum the remainder of his household will always be pro hunting. Like that, to me, being able to support hunting that way was just a really cool and unique experience.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've brought a couple buddies into the lifestyle, and you know what's going to end up happening to you, right? He's going to kill a bigger deer than you, and you're going to be aggravated as hell. It's going to happen, man. It happened to me. My buddy Nick, he grew up in a more of an urban area than I did, and he wasn't exposed to hunting until he was, I think we were graduated from high school, just getting into early college, and got him set up with a bow, took him deer hunting. I think on our first hunting trip, he shot a double-lunged doe, and it was a done deal, man. He was all in. I mean, to the fact where, like, when he bought his first house, he wanted to make sure he could walk out his back door and go deer hunting. And
that's awesome.
He's killed 2 deer that are, bigger than any deer that I've ever killed. 3 deer now. 3 deer. He went down to Ohio and killed a big 10-point last year. And then on our northern Michigan property, he shot arguably the biggest deer that ever came off there, 133-inch 8-point.
That's and then,
deer, yeah, big woods. Northern Michigan chocolate horned 8-point that scored 133 and change. 4-year-old giant buck. And then behind his house on his own property last year, he shot a 14-point. So
dude's doing
it's
okay,
just like,
man.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. Maybe it won't be that amplified for you, but that's been my experience with it. So I was like, what the heck, man?
Right. I mean, look, man, it's like if he gets into hunting that hardcore and he starts dropping hammers, dude, that would be awesome. Like I would be, yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. It's funny. It's like, it's almost like, I don't want to say, he's a grown ass man, so I don't want to say it's like taking my daughter hunting or anything like that. You know what I mean? But just,
sure.
You get that kind of excitement, man. Like you just appreciate the fact that someone is appreciating, you introducing them to something that's just that you hold sacred. And that was one of the things that he'd said to me, which was really kind of interesting, and it's probably because he's older too, right? Because, Trevor's in his, mid to latish 30s. And the one thing that he had said was, that at one point we were walking through the woods and he recognized that neither my friend Wilson or I, because we both went with him, neither of us were carrying guns. Like we both had cameras. We were like, we'll film it if something happens or whatever. And Wilson's a much better caller than I am, so he was calling. And he was like, I'm walking through the woods with you guys. He's like, and I'm recognizing that neither of you have a gun. So if we see anything today, he was like, there's not a chance that you guys are going to kill anything. He's like, and you guys are hunters. He was like, and it dawned on me that you guys were doing all of this for me. That you were taking he's like, set aside the time that you've spent like talking to me about it and, and taking me to shoot to get familiar with the shotgun and answering my questions about, the hunting test I was going to take and like all those things. He's like, but you took like an entire day out of your life of doing anything else when you could be hunting and walk through the woods with me to try to get me an opportunity to have this experience. He's like, in that moment, he's like, I kind of recognized like the brotherhood. He's like, and just watching how you and Wilson interacted with each other and how you guys were interacting with me, even though I was new to it. He was like, the brotherhood of hunting, he was like, was just really apparent. He's like, and that was just something that he had never kind of really experienced before, was something like that. And I thought that was really cool and really kind of insightful from him, and interesting that he was that perceptive to kind of pick that up.
Yeah, well, let's face it, man. There's a thing going on with modern day society where we're disconnected. We don't talk to our neighbors. We don't talk to our coworkers. If we do, it's in passing. And there's something different that happens when you're out hunting and you're working as a team and I guess you have a common goal or a common interest. But yeah, I mean, you can't build a relationship as strong as you can with a friend when you guys hunt together. It's just crazy. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and people that have never experienced that, I can see why it would be like an addictive chemical to them.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. I mean, it's like you don't build those bonds like that other ways. I mean, there's dudes, and I'm sure you have the same experience too. There's guys that I hunt with. I may only talk to them like right around hunting season, and then maybe when we hunt together, and maybe we don't talk but once a month or whatever. But as soon as we get together, it's like we've lived next door to each other for 20 years. I mean, you and I are a good example, right? It's like we'll text each other once in a while. The texts usually get pretty funny, pretty good, pretty racy. Maybe not clean enough for the podcast. And then, we might go 2 months and not share a text or anything. And then we'll have a phone call or we'll jump on and do a podcast together or whatever. And it's just like we lived next door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's so interesting that something.
It is. Yeah.
That hunting kind of connects people in that way.
Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned Greg Litzinger earlier, and you and I were talking one night, and you said, "Yeah, I see this guy on Instagram, bow hunting fiend," and checked him out. And then I don't know, it was a month or two later where you had him on your podcast, and after the podcast, I think I just shot him a message on Instagram saying, "Man, that was a great podcast, awesome." This and that, and it's like all of a sudden you get this friend in a different state that you never even met before, and there's days I'll shoot him a text message and it's the same thing. It's like, God, what a great dude. Like, it's just crazy how it's people with the same mentality, I guess. And it's something, and I talked to Dan Infault about this recently is like the most grounded people that I know are all sportsmen. They're either like really into hunting or fishing, and they just seem to be a little more grounded and a little more in touch with reality.
Right. You know, it's interesting, man, that you say that, because I wonder if there's some type of connection between the fact that when you go out to do, you know, the hunt that you're going to do, whatever it is, duck, goose, deer, rabbit, whatever the game is that you're chasing, like, you know, there's a possibility of like this moment of this moment of heaviness that's going to happen if you achieve your ultimate goal, right? Like, you're going out and have to be kind of mentally prepared to take a life, right? And at least, I don't know, I think my experience, this might be what you're kind of speaking to a little bit. It's like there's a sense of groundedness that has to come with that, because that's a really important decision that you're making. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, you know, people who can kind of reconcile that in a meaningful way and not just a blood sport kind of way, because, you know, those folks who have that type of approach, I mean, everyone has a right to hunt however they want to hunt. Those types of folks just aren't folks I necessarily want to associate with, and don't feel that they cast the best light on us as a group as a whole. But with that being said, it's like you said, the people that, you know, I surround myself with, and you do as well, it's like they have an appreciation for what they're about to do or what they're about to try to do.
Sure.
And there's a sense of that responsibility that I think travels not just from the hunting, but then it kind of permeates throughout the remainder of their life, whether it's them being a father or being a husband or, you know, being an employee or whatever it is. It's like you go do those things with an intent of doing them the right way and the best you can do them, and treating people the right way while you do them.
Yeah, and I think some of it too is like it's a biological, it's unconscious, like a biological thing that we're programmed into to enjoy and respect. And I think a big part of it is like, man, people were in the wilderness for way longer than we haven't been in the wilderness.
Right.
And that stuff is just ingrained in you, and when you go out there, it's just like, it just kind of consumes you and takes you over, and it gives you a different feeling than what you can get any other way. I mean, let's face it, like, I love Instagram, but it's gonna come and go. Like, the woods, the forest, you know, the hills, the open grass fields, that was here before us, and it's gonna be here probably after us. It's
right.
like, and there's something to be said for when you get out and you just disconnect from this modern society and you get time to think and clean your head and breathe clean air and be a part of the natural world, versus the one that we've built and separated some of our like primal instincts from. Man, it just I know that I suffer from, you know, all season when it's not deer season and I'm not in the woods a lot, you know, of being just stressed out. And I can go for a day and go out in the woods and hike, and just, man, it'll chill me out for a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I mean, that's one of the, I think, the best gifts that hunting gives, is just that opportunity to be primitive again. You know what I mean? To get like, there's just like, you're right. There's something in our like DNA makeup. I know Joe Rogan has talked about this a little bit, just like your primal DNA or your primal genetic code or whatever, that you're kind of pre-wired to have these certain urges and certain gratifications that could only be explained by, you know, our ancestors and how they had to forage and hunt and gather. And there's these moments of pleasure that happen that are unexplainable, right?
Sure.
You know, like, cause this, you know, set a scenario, for example, like, so let's take a doe, right? Cause I still get excited when does roll up on my stand, you know, it's like, and then when you release that air, that adrenaline rush after you harvest, it's like, you know, modern person will say you're excited because you achieved your goal of harvesting that deer and you were deer hunting. So then therefore that's why you were excited. You know, if you went a step further, you know, or took a step further back and thought about, well, what does that mean primitively to you, right? If you didn't disconnect yourself from like your primitive ancestry, right, through technology and our modern developments, what does that reaction mean? Well, that reaction means you're going to live now. You know what I mean? Like you're going to eat and your family's going to eat. Therefore, you're going to have the opportunity to procreate and continue on your species. You know what I mean? Like that's, if you reel it back that far, it's like that's what those kind of reactions are. Because you look at kids, when kids do it, when a kid fishes and catches a fish and their eyes light up and they freak out, like there's no one taught them to do that. You know what I mean? That's just the natural reaction that they're having. Like that comes from something deeper than liking to hunt or fish. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, it's like a fulfillment of something that's just and not everybody has it, right?
No.
I mean, but so some people do, and some people don't even know they have it until they're exposed to it. And I'm certainly addicted to it. I'm certainly all in. It's what I look forward to all year.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I wanted to talk about, we're getting kind of deep here, and we're still talking about hunting, but I wanted to kind of take a hard kind of segue transition here, because we're starting to talk more about social things and just life things in general. And I wanted to kind of touch it because I love talking to you about these things, because we just always have really interesting conversations around this stuff. And I know whenever I was on your show here, I guess over the winter, one of the things we talked about just a little bit was Ted Nugent. And I know, as I am, I know you do listen to the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh yeah.
And we were sharing some pretty great texts that day. That was some of the racy ones that we might not be able to talk about while we're talking here. But as we were both kind of catching up on that podcast that he did with Ted Nugent, it just kind of made me think back to the conversation that we had about him,
for sure,
a couple months prior to that. And so, I'll start it off by saying this, because I want to kind of get your perspective on how you felt about his overall message and just the overall conversation. Because I know when we spoke, or when we were texting, the one text that we probably can share is that we both kind of agreed, like, the guy's he's not, people are I don't want to say discrediting him, but they are discrediting themselves, I guess I will say, if they assume or imply that he's not an intelligent man, because that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth.
Right.
It's like the guy is well read on many topics. Is he a little crazy? Is he a little out there? Sure, he is, right? But everyone has a touch of crazy, I think. It's just kind of how we all roll. Some of ours is a little bit more pronounced than others. But what we both kind of agreed on, though, was that the dude sucks in short form media.
Yep.
Is really good in long form media when he can explain himself. So I'm just curious what your thoughts on his overall message, approach, and that conversation was.
I think it was amazing, honestly. I mean, I've listened to Joe Rogan for years now, and it's right up there. I mean, in a half a dozen of some of the best ones that I've ever listened to. I mean, yeah. And it was weird. It started off kind of clunky, and it took them a while to get going. It took about 30 minutes for them to kind of find their groove and draw me in. And, I think in short format that Ted Nugent is detrimental. He's just a little too harsh for people. Are going to tune out before they're going to tune in if they're not in agreement with him, or they don't have a preconceived notion that they like him and know who he is and what he's about. But man, give him a chance. That podcast was amazing. I mean, the amount of facts that guy brings and the knowledge that he has, and maybe some of it's not accurate. Right.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you have to take a little bit of that with a grain of salt, because whenever he spits some facts and stuff like that, it's like you have to kind of, you don't know where he's getting his information, right? Because what one person calls fact, another person calls opinion.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and then just in talking and listening to him talk, it's like and rightly so, he has a disdain for certain types of bodies that do research, and that he doesn't feel that they're credible and stuff like that, right? So
Right.
so at some point it's like, okay, well, what is a credible source then for you? You know what I
Sure.
mean? And is it truly credible? Because it could be as non-credible as the source that you're deeming to be not credible. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
So,
Yep.
but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought that
No,
was an
no,
interesting
no,
point.
not at all. I mean, you gotta appreciate the guy for his level of confidence, man. I don't know. He's got to have a piece that he tucks inside his tennis shoe. I mean, like, to have that amount of confidence that he has to talk in the manner that he does. But, I mean, come on. He's a rock star, right? I mean, he's been a rock star for decades. And I really enjoyed it, and obviously he's a Michigan native. He talks positive. He's brought some negative stuff up about Michigan, but I enjoyed it. And here's one thing that I find harder and harder to come by is for me to be able to get a good laugh. And I don't know that I laughed harder than I did in a long time listening to that podcast.
Dude.
Some of the one-liners and the things that came out of that guy's mouth were just, and anybody that can make me laugh that hard, I have a great appreciation for, because it's such a stress reliever to laugh.
Dude, we were texting each other as we were driving, as we were both, because we were both listening to it almost like we were just a couple minutes ahead or behind one another and listening to it. And dude, I about ran off the road like 3 different times trying to text you something, because it was just hilarious. Like, made me laugh out loud in my truck. Like, no one else in the truck, like, belly laughing out loud like a fool.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I came right out of my seat when he said he's going to eat your family tree and shit sawdust in your face.
That was probably my favorite one, actually.
Yeah, it was. I won't forget that. But, yeah, he brought up some good points, and he's still naive to the fact that he could do a better job.
Yeah, so that's my one fault with him, man, because it's like, you have this amazing platform, and he does a lot of good stuff for veterans and stuff like that. Like, he's one of those dudes. He puts his money where his mouth is, right? He puts the effort out there. Not his money like literally, but he does a lot of good things for a lot of people that probably in large part goes unnoticed because of his kind of straightforward brashness that kind of rubs people the wrong way. And you just wish that someone who had that was that invested in the hunting community was able to kind of smooth his edges a little bit. And I'm not talking about censoring him at all. You know what I mean? It's
right.
But you have an amazing opportunity to be an incredible ambassador, for the sport, and to open up doors that, I can't think of a bigger, more mainstream. And when I say mainstream, it's like, I'm not talking like politically left or right. I'm talking like he's a household name. You know what I mean? It's like Mark and Terry Drury are hunting celebrities, but they are not a household name. Like, you go somewhere in Philadelphia and you say, who's Mark and Terry Drury? It's like, people look at you like you have 3 heads. They have no clue who that is. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you go walking downtown Center City, Philadelphia, and you say, hey, do you know who Ted Nugent is? Everybody knows who Ted Nugent is. You know what I mean? So he has that type of, penetration into people's homes where everybody knows who he is. And if he was just able to kind of curtail it enough to recognize that, like, how many more minds could he change if he would just speak, to understand how to speak to those people, to know how to do it to where they wouldn't shut him out immediately.
Yeah, I think the thing he's got to do is maybe when he's invited to do the platforms that they know what they're doing by baiting him in and what he's going to say, he's just got to steer clear of those, and he's got to do things like long format because that was great. I mean, he didn't leave a bad impression. And
look, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think he's, but that confidence thing is that if anybody's going to, basically come at him, he's going to come back at him. And I guess that, that can be damaging. But, yeah, in that long format, he killed it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I dug the podcast. I came away with a different perspective of him overall. I think you know, I, I think that the stigma that he has as far as, folks, what they think of him socially, as far as I think that he's a racist and stuff like that, I think are completely misguided. And even his fundamental like political philosophy is solid. You know what I mean? Like even if you aren't conservative and you listen to him, it's like it's logic. Like it's logical information, And the other thing I found interesting too is like he was open to hear, Rogan's side of the story on just about anything. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And was open to it. And that's the other thing I don't think that he gets credit for. It's like he's willing to listen, but you can't just come at him with like a bunch of rhetoric because he's not gonna want to hear it. You know what I mean? Because they got on the topic of pot, right? In which he, of course, his career has been anti any drug because he had seen, as he'd mentioned in the show, the rise and fall of many amazing musicians due to drugs and alcohol. And so staunchly against, right? And Rogan, of course, staunchly for, the right types in using within the right methods and so forth. And so that was an interesting debate. And by the end of it, at first he was basically like, you can piss up a rope, Joe. It's all bad. You know what I mean? And
right.
Then by the end of the conversation, he was like, I can see where there's application. And,
Yeah.
and that's all you're looking for in a dialogue is just like that open-mindedness and willingness to have a real conversation, which nobody has anymore at all.
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't know. I definitely struggled with that for a long time. I don't know what changed my mind about it. It probably could be a lot of listening to Rogan because he's like that. Probably was a big factor about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have a conversation with somebody that we share completely different opinions and viewpoints, but I don't dislike them because of it. I just realize that whatever, they have different opinions and have had different impressions instilled upon them, and they just don't see things the way that I do. And I use the example within the deer hunting community a lot of times of the people that go to each other's throats,
Yeah.
compound, crossbow, gun hunter, I only bow hunt, this and that, and that's all great. Take your own path, do what you want to do, but don't be so concerned about what everyone else wants to do. It, as much as you might think so, it really doesn't have an impact on what you're doing.
Yep.
And if it does, just adjust your strategy a little bit.
Right.
But I mean, when you go to a deer camp, like a Northern Michigan deer camp, I mean, guys are hunting with different weapons and have different methods and different objectives. That doesn't stop us from being friends at the campfire and having beers together and eating dinner together. And, part of it's obviously social media disconnects you from the reality of who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
Right.
But I don't know. I'd love to see more people with that open mindset instead of just everybody wants to go right into attack mode so quickly.
Yeah. Well, it's everyone wants to be right. You know what I mean? Like they'll defend their wrong position just on the off chance that if they fight long enough they might be right. You know what I mean? As opposed to going, I'm going to take what you said into consideration because that might actually help me at some point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like no one wants to, and I don't know where that comes from. Like the inability to allow someone to help you out. Like I don't know where it comes from. I guess like we were talking earlier, like we both surround ourselves with people who have like a sense of like humility and are just good down to earth people. Where it's like if you present like a reasonable argument about something, like they'll go, yeah, kind of makes sense. I could see why you think that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm not asking you to follow my lead and do what I'm saying, but it's like all I'm asking you to do is go, yeah, I could see how you could come to that conclusion.
Right.
It's like, and that's really all it takes because, not to make the conversation political per se, but it's like that's the only way anything gets done. Whether you're talking about healthcare, if you want to go into like the politics side, or whether you're talking about how to manage deer from a state perspective, or whether you're talking about public lands and how they're going to be managed, whether they're going to, sell off the federal lands to states or not. You know what I mean? It's like both sides at some point have to have a realistic conversation about what's really happening, what the real impact is, and then be able to at least appreciate each other's points of view to go, I never thought of that. Just like we would ask as a hunters and people who, love the public lands and want to make sure that they stay, accessible and not within state control and so on and so forth. At the same time, we have to be able to stop and look at why would someone on the opposite side of our opinion think that that's a good idea? Like, what are the reasonable reasons for that thought?
Right.
Because yes, there are some jerks out there that just want to flip a buck and sell it off to some developer. But then there are some real people out there who have real concerns and reasons why they would think that that might be a good idea. You know what I mean? And just as our opinion we feel is valid to say, no, we're not selling them come hell or high water. We want them to take our opinion into consideration. So we have to kind of reciprocate the same amount of respect and say, hey, I want to hear your side of the story. I want to understand why you think this way. And I'd love to share my opinion. And hopefully we can come to some type of an agreement, where we can kind of appease both sides and each of us maybe give up a little something to get a little something, and that's because the whole like dig my heels in and I'm not moving, go pound salt my way or the highway, that just isn't going to work,
No, it's not. We're not going to get anywhere. I mean, you brought up the politic thing, and I think it's a huge problem just in this country to move forward collectively as a group. As you're either a Democrat or a Republican, which I understand. But at the same time, if all Republicans hate all Democrats and all Democrats hate all Republicans,
so
and
weird.
all we're doing is arguing and going back and forth, we can't look at the bigger picture and move forward collectively as a group. And if we could just focus a little more on issues, but it's going back to that biological programming in our brain. We're, as a species, we're very tribal. We get in these tribes, and your tribe's right and we're against that tribe, and I don't know what changed with me when I was able to look outside of that, but at some point in time I quit caring about those little groups and just cared about issues in the bigger picture, and I guess trying to move forward. And that's the only way you're going to do it, is to get out of that mentality. And I think that's amplified within the hunting community, and I think part of that is like hunting being such a tribal ritual. You counted on your tribe to provide for you, and you worked against other tribes, maybe in the same woods to harvest game to feed your family and whatnot. And I think that comes right down to the clothes we wear, the bows we shoot, the arrows. Hey, you're shooting Carbon Express, well, I shoot Easton, we can't be friends.
Right.
And it's like, gosh, look past that. You guys both love to hunt. There's just such a way bigger picture, and I think part of that is the industry too. Making promotional staff, making teams. I'm on team X and you're on team Y.
Yeah.
And so we're not working together. Now we're working against each other inside this little community that's already small, and we all need each other's support, and companies need to put people on these teams to, move products, push sales. I understand that, but man, I got to do a better job of not pinning everybody against each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting. Like, this was like an old like marketing, and it's not a marketing trick, but it's like one of the fastest ways to create brand advocacy, right? And it's like you don't have to look any further than like Mac and PC. The reason Mac and PC were so successful, and Mac specifically, is because they positioned themselves as the anti-PC. You know what I mean? It was like, if you are a PC person, we want nothing to do with you. You are the antithesis of everything that we stand for, right? And PC was kind of the same way, vice versa. So like the easiest way to create advocacy and brand advocacy is to create what you are vehemently against as a brand. And that's it's funny because like since I work in like marketing, it's like when I see marketing and advertising, some of the stuff that happens in the outdoor industry, It's like I see that playing out, and it's in part like they will say on the surface they don't want to disconnect people, right? But it's fundamentally in their best interest to create a divide, because it will create the us versus them mentality. Like every sports team does it. You know, what happens when you get into the playoffs? Like every team all of a sudden internally says they're an underdog, right? They went 16-0, and all of a sudden now they feel like they're getting slighted and they're an underdog in the game. You know what I mean? Even though everyone knows, the Patriots, for example, they'll come out and say the first playoff game of, the year, 13-3, and they're like, yeah, we're an underdog in this game. Like no one's giving us any respect. It's like you're playing that card because it's beneficial to you to do so. It's the us versus the world mentality. Right. It filters into marketing, which obviously filters into the hunting industry, and that's kind of what you have. It's the elitism of it all, right? It's like, well, I only bow hunt. You know what I mean? It's like, you'll hear when people talk about the deer they killed last year. It's like, oh yeah, I shot this deer with when I was muzzleloader hunting, or shotgun hunting or whatever, and the guy's like, oh yeah, well, I killed mine with a bow at 15 yards, and I must be better because mine was closer, and I had to get closer. It's like,
right.
You know what I mean? It's just everything becomes a competition, and I don't know where this mentality of like, because you won means I lose. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we're not even playing the same game per se.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we can both win. Like, it's okay. Like, we can both help each other. You know what I mean? And doesn't mean you get any less. We're not talking socialism. It's just talking like being normal, real humans and treating each other with some respect.
Well, take this for an example, vegans and hunters.
Oh man. Yeah.
It's crazy. We have like this kind of very similar goal.
Yeah.
But we're on these two different roads to get there, and people are so quick to jump on each other and call names and be nasty, where it's like, dude, if you were going to just pick some people like randomly and show me on paper and be like, this person's a vegan, or just like some average people that are driving down the road flicking cigarette butts out the window,
right.
Like, I'm pretty certain, well, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that. But I'm going to say there's a better percentage chance that vegans aren't throwing cigarette butts out the window and unconsciously wasting things. Like, there's some common mindset between like what they're trying to achieve with like low impact versus what we are. Mm-hmm. And the same thing for the respect for animals. I mean,
PETA is a great example. You know what I mean? It's like, they're, of course, for animal rights. It's like, but they're completely anti-hunter, who is all about supporting the conservation of habitat, wild places, and wild animals. We have a different approach to do it, but our end goal is still very similar, and we have a lot of things in common.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, I don't know where some of these divides come from. I think you're right. I think it's just we all become tribal. And it's like, I even find myself doing it subconsciously. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll catch myself doing it, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why do I care about this? You know what I mean? It's like, when you think about it, I'm like, this doesn't matter. Why am I getting...
Dude, yeah, companies take advantage of it, too. I mean, it's all the way down to coolers now,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
yeah. There's
so many cooler brands, and people are, like, really loyal.
Yeah.
To them. It's a product that keeps your drink cold. Like, they all do this kind of the same thing. Like, there's no reason a guy that is a fan of one can't hang out with a friend that's a fan of another one, or one guy likes Miller Lite and one guy likes Bud Light, and all of a sudden they're having a fist fight in a bar. Right.
That's the one place is where they actually hang out together still, and they're okay.
Right.
With each other. You know what I mean? It's like they're all at the same bar. It's cool. I'm gonna fist fight you over my cooler.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't make any sense at all, Or,
yeah, man, we're not perfect as human beings. We have our flaws, and
it starts with cooler loyalty.
Cooler loyalty. Yep.
Oh my God, man. Yeah, I don't know, man. Humans are funny creatures. That's for sure. Maybe one day we'll have this thing called life figured out a little bit more than we do now. But man, I don't know, dude. It's I had like one more kind of topic that I wanted to kind of to talk through if you have a couple minutes still.
Do it.
All right. So here in PA, we've had CWD for a couple years, and it's been in a couple different areas. They've kind of, I don't want to say they've eradicated it because there's no getting rid of it per se, but it's not at a what they would deem or term a CWD management area any longer. There are, however, two hot spots in PA, which both of my family properties happen to reside in, which sucks. But I do know, that I had heard or read that it has recently made its way to Michigan, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And part of what, going back to Ted Nugent, part of what that conversation that during that podcast kind of one of the topics they covered in, I would say, quite extensively for Joe Rogan's podcast, since it's not a outdoor podcast per se, was they covered CWD quite a bit in that conversation and his kind of perspective. And then almost around the same time, there was I don't even know who this guy was, because I don't, I guess his name is Jay Gregory. And,
I know who he is.
Yeah, and that was the first time I had ever heard of him. Like, I had to look him up because I had no clue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had no clue who he was.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He used to be a staffer. I think he got his start being a staffer for the juries.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I read. And just, I, for whatever reason, I just, didn't know who he was. And that was the first time I'd ever heard his name was, with the rant that he kind of went on with the CWD stuff. So sure. I'm just curious, as a Michigan guy, as a Wolverine, what's your take on it? Like, 'cause this is relatively new to you, and I know you read a fair amount just about topics that are going on, outside of your state and so forth. So I know you're aware of it beyond it coming to Michigan now. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it, and if you're privy to any of the ways that folks have managed, or some states have managed it in the past, and if you have an opinion about that, and just kind of want to talk to you about it, man, because I know it's kind of fresh for you guys, and it's something that we've been kind of dealing with here in PA for a couple years.
Yeah, man, it's a tough one. I mean, you get very confident people that you respect and know and you trust on both sides of the argument, telling you don't do this or do this, and I think what it really boils down to is don't take anything for face value, and don't trust anything that you hear until you do your own research and draw your own conclusions. There always seems to be some driving factors behind why people say what they do. Now, for me, in the past couple of years, I've grown to have a great level of respect for our state wildlife management here in Michigan. I know our deer and elk biologist personally. I would consider him a friend. I don't think that he would ever tell me anything that's not truthful. Mm-hmm. And he tells me that these things that they are lining up to do are essentially at a level that they understand way more in depth than I do.
Right.
These are the moves to make to try to slow this thing down. Are you going to beat it? No, doesn't sound like it. Right. So that's concerning. I mean, if we know we can't beat it, are we just throwing things up in the air and hoping something sticks? Or are we doing this stuff because we actually have evidence that it will slow it down?
Right.
I don't know yet, man. It's a crazy thing what it is, the fact that you can literally contaminate the ground with this and then burn everything to the ground and it still be, that ground still be an infective area. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you do beat it, but I'm going to defer to people that know way more than me. And all I'm going to do is not draw any conclusions. I'm going to keep listening. I'm going to keep learning. And maybe at some point I do draw a conclusion. But right now, I think the smartest thing to do is, at a local level, listen to and try to find people that you know and trust, listen to what they have to say, and then listen to what people that you potentially know and trust that have the complete counter perspective. Listen to what they have to say and start drawing your own conclusion and do your own research, and just don't take anything, don't take anything as gospel, because the more and more that I pay attention to topics in depth, it's amazing to me how I think I have something figured out. And then later I find something out that was like, wow, I'm an idiot. I completely made a huge stink about something that I thought was right that actually wasn't right.
Right.
So I'm just very reluctant to jump on a side or a plan or whatever. But so far, everything that the state has proposed here, and it's probably pretty easy for me to say this because it's not really directly impacting any areas that I hunt. I'm sure it's a lot different for people in other areas.
Right.
All I care about is being able to go get my deer tags and be able to go deer hunting. So I'm just going to take as much information in as I can, continue to process it, not draw any hard line conclusions on where I stand on it, because let's face it, they're going to find something out in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now that is going to change everything that we've thought until this point, probably.
Right.
So I think the important thing is for people to stay open-minded about it.
Right. I think I 100% agree with you. I think when these types of things that are as complicated as this is, right, and as scary as it is and what it could mean to hunting overall, I think it's best to just kind of gather information for a period of time. I think the scariest part of it is that even the experts, like the quote unquote experts, or the people who I don't want to call them quote unquote experts because they are experts, by definition, but the people who are
they're professionals.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Professionals that are most involved with trying to help establish what this thing is and how to manage it going forward and what should be done. I think the scariest part is that they'll admit, at least the truthful ones, is that we're not quite sure. You know what I mean? It's that's kind of the answer you get, right? It's like without going into like further detail, because I've talked to some buddies from the QDMA that does a lot of work in this space, and Kip, of course, he's one of the biologists there. That's what he does a lot of the research there with them, and he's pretty plugged into state agencies, at least here in Pennsylvania and nationally. He's got a good pulse on what's going on. And they are making some headway, right? But it's nothing that's like significant, right? It's nothing that's saying like, now we have a plan. Like now we know exactly what we need to do. It's like, and he, basically said that. It's like, we're learning more and more about it. We just haven't gotten to the point to where we have figured out how we effectively either eradicate it or effectively keep it from spreading without, they do certain things like, the area that my family properties are in, like we can't use any type of mineral stations or anything like that. We can't use any type of, lures or scent attractants and stuff like that. Anything that's going to congregate deer to a small area, we can't use, essentially.
Right.
Which to me, it's a bummer because, I like using mineral just to kind of, get my inventory on the property for the year of, what nice deer are in the area and stuff. But look, I'd rather give that up than think that I'm doing anything to damage anything any further.
Oh yeah. I'm in complete agreement. It's since before CWD, it's illegal in the state of Michigan to put bait or mineral, which is deemed an attractant, out before I want to say it's like September 15th or something. People are just, they don't care one bit, man.
Right.
I follow on social media all these groups, and some of them have big platforms, and they just don't care, man. Like they're out putting mineral out and salt blocks and this and that. And it's like, especially with the onset of CWD now, you think people would be a little more conscious of like paying attention to what professionals are saying and how we can slow this thing down. But nope, and It hits home for me too, man, because like we had a piece of property in northern Michigan, and one of the probably the most prestige wilderness areas that you're going to find in the Lower Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And our neighbor to the east of us had this gorgeous, beautiful piece of property, 280 acres. He decides to put a 10-foot fence around the whole thing and turn it into a deer farm.
Oh.
So, yeah, now that's our east line, is a 10-foot fence of this gorgeous wilderness area that we, have had for the last 30 years. And where does, there's a potential there, right? I mean,
right.
He's going to be moving deer in and out and this and that. I mean, I think the research has been done that part of the reason why CWD is spread is people moving deer around.
Right, and that's a high risk. That's a high risk, business in terms of. I guess I shouldn't say that. It has a higher probability that it's going to happen in an enclosed area than it does in a wild space.
Right. So we got him doing that, and then we got people hunting in the same state forest that we hunt in that have platforms and are on Instagram and Facebook, posting pictures of bucks on trail cameras that are at their mineral sites, which is illegal in the state of Michigan. And now we have, CWD spreading through our state, and it's like, does anybody care? Is anybody paying attention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, part of it is too, and I think. I was talking to a buddy of mine from Wisconsin at one point, because they've had it, of course, for some time, and them in Illinois were probably like two of the tougher cases, early on in terms of what it did to their deer herds and how it was, managed or mismanaged, whatever side of the fence you fall on with that. And I totally lost my train of thought right there. Oh, they've not done a great job of communicating it either. Because I know whenever it became a hot spot in my hometown, I knew about it, but, this is kind of what you and I do. So it's like we're kind of plugged into things that happen and stuff like that. And so we'll know about something that's happening maybe early on, hopefully. But, I was going back home and, cousins and friends and stuff were asking me, hey, you get your minerals out yet? I'm like, no, man, can't put mineral out. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, our property, your property too, is in the CWD hot zone. They had no clue, like zero clue that there was even a CWD zone in Pennsylvania, let alone it was in the area in which they live.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so they just have to do a better job of letting people know that stuff, that it's in an area. But I also think, going back to the Ted Nugent, Jay Gregory thing, is like it's really dangerous to have people that have that kind of exposure and that kind of platform just to completely discredit the professional work that has been done by scientists.
Oh yeah, I agree with that big time.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I'm dumbfounded often by
it's ego.
Some's reluctance to acknowledge that there is a thing called science, and a scientific method by which things are proven or disproven. And a scientist's primary job really is to disprove things. Like, that's really what they're trying to do. It's like they're not in it to prove themselves right per se. Like their main job is to prove that things are incorrect. Right. Because that's kind of how you get to the point of knowing something is right, was when you pull all the things that it couldn't be away, then you're left with the thing that it is. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the way the scientific method is built. And it just blows my mind. You don't have to buy the approach to help manage it, hook, line, and sinker. But for some people, especially hunters, to say that it's not a problem or it's something that's made up, like, I'm just like, man, like,
oh yeah, that whole Jay Gregory thing was just a joke, and it was just going to show that there's a man that's lived the better part of his life. I mean, and he hasn't figured out yet how to manage his ego. Yeah, because that was pathetic. like for someone his age to spout off like that and be so incorrect. And he kept reiterating. He kept saying this, and I'm thinking to myself, quit making this statement if this is what you want to be online ranting about. He kept saying, I don't understand it. I don't really know all the details. Then shut your mouth.
Right. Yeah.
Then don't go on Facebook when you're at a golf course, buzzed up, shooting 18, and discredit all the people that are working their asses off to try to protect this thing for us. Yeah, that was really aggravating to me. It was laughable.
Yeah. I mean, you can't fix stupid. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where
yeah, and he's probably not a stupid guy.
No,
he's probably an intelligent guy, but he doesn't know how to check his ego. I can assure you of that, man.
Right, and that was kind of what my takeaway was whenever I was listening to Nugent talk about it as well. Because I mean, he didn't go on a rant. I mean, he had an open dialogue about it. You know what I mean? So he was more willing to hear and understand. But his first approach was really just like, that shit's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, that was really like his first. And then, you know, Rogan, in true Rogan fashion, was like, they've done a lot of research on this, and there's biologists, and he's like, I find it hard to believe that people's, you know, who dedicate their lives to preserving wildlife and conservation have it, you know, that this one topic is the thing that they're trying to screw everyone on. You know what I mean? Like, well, it doesn't make sense.
I'll tell you what, man, I listened to all that, and after I did, I contacted our Chad Stewart, our deer biologist for the state of Michigan, because we've been talking for a while that we're gonna try to hook up in August and have him on the show.
Nice.
And I said, hey, do me a favor. I want to ask you about some of these questions. Listen to this, please. Mm-hmm. So I asked him to go listen to that, and so hopefully when I do get the opportunity to sit down with him here next month, I'll be able to ask him those questions and from his viewpoint get some answers. So
nice. Yeah, that'll be cool, man. It's unfortunate, you know, folks who have that type of platform use it for dividing on certain topics versus, you know, bringing folks together to collaborate. Because hell, who knows? He might be right. You know what I mean? But it'd be really nice if like all the parties who have a stake in it that are informed and putting forth the work were all at the table to kind of help craft, you know, whatever the approach is going to be and hash out, you know, what some of the faults of each side might be. You know what I mean? Like that would be tremendously helpful, rather than just kind of spouting off, you know. There was also go ahead.
I think he did come back on and do like an apology one like a day or two later or whatever, you know. Probably one of his sponsors reached out to him and said, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, so he did issue some type of some apology. Right. But the thing that got me is he must have said half a dozen times throughout the thing, I don't understand this. I don't know all the details, but here I am telling you how to think about it.
Right. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. And then there was another guy that I'd seen also, Roger Ragland. Did you see that one?
God, yes. Just stop.
Oh my God, dude. That was amazing. I was like,
dude, we just gave Roger Ragland like this huge shout out on our podcast a couple of weeks ago for just, I mean, I don't know, you just look at the guy and he seems like somebody that'd probably be a good time to hang out with.
Right.
Guy probably knows how to have a good time.
Right.
But yeah, then he starts talking about people actually caring about animals and caring about hunting and actually having like a positive outlook and trying to like reach people that aren't hunters and just being a dumbass about it.
Yeah.
Oh, it was aggravating.
Yeah, I saw that one and I was just like, it was like all of it was in the same week too. I felt like it was like,
oh yeah, right there, right. Yep.
And I was like, damn. I was like, someone like something happened. Full moon. Like, I don't know. Like everyone just lost their shit for like a week. But
I think a lot of that stuff's going on. It's just you caught two good ones in a week, and yeah, everybody's got a, you know, not everybody, but a lot of people have egos and opinions, and now they have platforms to, you know, broadcast that. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's because whether it's hunting or whether it's, you know, the the political sphere, social sphere, economic sphere, whatever it is, you always hear, people will say it's worse than it used to be, or people are meaner than they used to be, or or people are more violent than they used to be, or whatever the case is. More whatever the attribute is they don't like, right? It's more of that. And it's interesting though, because I think about it in the sense that I don't know that any of this stuff happens any more or less than it used to. I think that we are just so interconnected now that even though we are disconnected personally and we don't spend time with each other, all the things that we've already talked about, right? We're more connected, digitally than we've ever been. And everyone at this point is a publisher, where the only time you saw an opinion, in recent history, like just pre-internet, so like the early 90s essentially, was reading a newspaper, a magazine, or seeing, something on the news or TV or whatever. But you knew TV was kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like that was like, you knew like TV was sensationalized. The news was kind of the news, but amped up a little bit for ratings and stuff like that. So if you really wanted good information, like you had to go find some type of written document to read, whether it was a magazine, a newspaper, or a book, or whatever the case might be, because it had to go through some type of editor and some type of review. And, there were gatekeepers along the way that were going to kind of check the quality and journalistic integrity of whatever the piece was that was being published, right?
Right.
Now, with social media, everyone's their own publisher. You can have an opinion about anything, and in 5 seconds have it out to your 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 followers, however many people it is, and start a shitstorm with it, essentially.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't know that we're any worse than we were before, other than I think that we're more connected and more aware because we just have more access to more information, and because I think people also feel empowered by having some anonymity behind a keyboard and not having to put their face in public against this thing, right? Immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Now I imagine there's a tremendous more amount of regret for doing it, not because they regret what they said, they regret the response. You know what I mean? Because they're not using the time that you would use if you were going to write an article, to kind of write it and then think about what you're writing and then say, okay, does this make sense? Am I being truthful, or is this like, is my journalistic integrity intact here? Now you have a thought, a stream of consciousness, you type it, you punch it, you send it. You never had a moment to reflect about whether or not what you were about to send into the world was how you wanted to represent yourself, or whether it was even accurate, or whether it could be hurting something that you really love. So I don't know, man. What do you think? What's your perspective on that?
It's just crazy times, dude. People don't know how to. I'm thankful that before social media really got popular, that I wasn't a teenager.
Preach, man. Good God.
Dude, because these younger people are just doomed because they're growing up with this stuff and this disconnect. And I was at the park earlier this week with my son and my wife, and I hear these three girls storming around, and they're talking about how the one was talking shit about the other one on Facebook, and now they're going to try to find her and beat her up. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, please, it's, I don't know. I'm glad that I'm a little bit past it. And, but, like I said, some people are in their 60s and 70s and aren't above it or aren't past it. They're opinionated people, and they're going to use it to say, but yeah, the disconnect from not, having the repercussions of standing there talking with somebody that can counter your argument, or, if you get too out of line, punch you in the teeth.
Right.
is
exactly.
It's just a thing that we don't know how to deal with yet, man.
Right. I know when I was growing up, dude, same thing, pre-interwebs and pre-social media, it was, if you had first off, you didn't have a beef with someone in another state because you didn't even know anyone in another state, other than if you had like a cousin, that lived somewhere else.
Right.
So your beefs were like in the school that you were in, and the way you handled those was like, dude would roll by like, at the cafeteria and be like, after school, we're going to throw down. I don't like you. You know what I mean? And that was, you'd go after school, you'd throw down, and and it would get handled that way. And then once it was done, and you went about your merry way.
Yeah, I know we both got young kids, and we'll be dealing with it. I mean, yours a little older than mine. You get a daughter, I got a son, so it'll be a little different. But man, I'm not looking forward to it.
No, she's already asking for like, when can I get an Instagram account? I said, when you're 47, that's when you can get an Instagram account.
Yeah. When you have your own house and car.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, one Instagram account in this household. It's mine. So.
Oh, Instagram actually just got canceled. So.
Yeah, it just went away. Actually, we don't have internet anymore. It just went away. But. Well, cool, man. We've been on here for almost 2 hours. I have one more topic if you're game to cover.
100%. And before we shift gears, one thing that it's worth to mention is that, we're talking about Instagram here and social media. And I think you've probably noticed that a lot of times, like people that have big followings that have hunting stuff, a lot of times they'll have photos that like they're tasteful photos and they're nice photos, but they're like censored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, it's not unreasonable to think that going forward, more and more that will happen to where if your platform is like hunting
mm-hmm.
and that they're not even going to allow that. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen this week or this month.
Right.
But I think it's something that people like us should be conscious of. 100%. And there is platforms out there, social media platforms that are like for hunting and fishing. And a friend of mine, Sam Ubel,
mm-hmm.
Has a platform called Hunt More.
Yeah.
And Hunt More is a pretty cool app, and it's a social media app, and it's all geared towards hunting and fishing and outdoors. So I think it's something worth mentioning that people might want to look into joining and being on, because it's all hunting and fishing and outdoor stuff. And as some of these social platforms are taken over by people that have no concept of who we are or what we do or why we do it, it's worth supporting somebody who does understand that stuff and has gone to the effort to make a platform where people can go and do that stuff. I don't know. I'm sure there's other ones. It's just the only one off the top of my head that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it's cool. I checked it out. It's I would equate it to it's like Instagram meets like Pinterest for hunting, for the outdoors. Like, yeah. That's kind of how it's interesting you bring that up, because it's funny. I had, so, each podcast that I put out, it's like, I'll do like a small ad for it usually, you know what I mean? And just, it's not like spend a ton of money on it or whatever, but just, I'll spend $10 on it or something like that and make an ad for it, because part of it too is, if someone's coming on, a buddy like yourself or whomever, and they take the time out of their day to sit and spend some time with me and talk shit, then, least I can do is, not just put the post out, but it's like, I like to try to put a little bit of something behind it to see if I can get a little bit more exposure for that person that came on. Sure. And for the longest time, like it was all good. Like with Facebook, it was no problem. I'd set my ads up and I'd send them out and they would get approved. And all of a sudden, like they started denying them. Like anything that had someone with an animal, and I would usually try to edit the photo, crop it to where it's like, it wasn't like you saw like, the gut slice, like to gut the deer or anything like that. And if like the deer's face was all bloody, it's like I wouldn't use those. It's like I tried to use like ones that were respectable, field photos,
100%.
And or it would be like a taxidermist photo, like someone's mount or whatever. And for the longest time they were getting approved and it was fine. Then all of a sudden, any one of them that had that, they were getting canceled. Like they were starting to censor my ads. Like they wouldn't they wouldn't approve them. And it was interesting because I was getting disapproved, right? But, and I know Mark. And so Mark, Kenyon would put out whatever his ad was, and it would be like someone, a grip and grin photo with same type of picture or whatever, and his ad's running. And I just thought it was curious. And so I emailed them and I sent a screenshot of his post and my post, and I just basically said, it's interesting that someone who spends more money with you with the same image has an approved image, and someone who spends less money with you has the same exact image, essentially, and you're not approving. I was like, I would like for at least the standards to be equal in terms of how you're regulating what you're approving and not approving, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, right. I was running into someone who on that end, I don't know if they were like attributed to my account or whatever it was, but it was basically at whoever was doing the approving, it was at their discretion to determine what was going to be represented or not. And a nice little funny tidbit is once they got into all the congressional trouble for allowing, whatever fake news to be published and stuff like that, and not vetting the credibility of people who are publishing things that could be damaging, nationally. And they got, Zuckerberg had to go to Congress and kind of plead his case. And they basically told him, like, get your shit together, and we don't care what your promises are. We want to see results. Literally the next day, things I was getting denied, I haven't had a single one denied now.
Really?
Every one of them have been approved. Yep, without question. And actually, like, within, like, an hour getting it approved. Like, where other times it would make me wait, like, 4 days, 5 days to get it approved.
That's why I brought it up. I mean, you've had Sam Soholt on your podcast, and guy's an excellent photographer.
Amazing.
A great representative of the hunting, lifestyle.
Yep.
And you go on his page, and he's got images that are blurred out, and it says sensitive content. And you click on it, and you're like, what? Really?
Yep.
Sensitive content? It's guy hold a piece of meat.
Right.
And
people eat,
to
right?
me, it's just
people
like,
got to eat. People eat that stuff.
And that's the only reason I bring it up, is just look forward and think of, what probably not too many people that are diehard deer hunters are going to be looking for jobs at Facebook and Instagram.
Right. Yeah.
So why not go join and support a platform that is built by people that do support that? And I understand it's not as popular or whatever, but Huntmore is the only one that I Huntmore and Fishmore are the only two that I know of. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but I think it's wise for people to just be conscious of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it goes back to some of the principles we've talked about just overall during our chat today, which is, in terms of supporting the overall hunting lifestyle, it's like, just align yourself with the right people. You know what I mean? Like the people who are going to not just support you, but support hunting. And that goes beyond that. It goes to, where you're sending your dollars. You know what I mean? What companies are you supporting financially in terms of purchasing their products and stuff like that? I mean, it all adds up. You know what I mean? It's like, I would rather spend a little bit more, and I do this even locally. It's like, I'd rather go spend my money and spend a couple more dollars for something at like something that is locally owned, a local coffee shop, than I would a chain coffee shop.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
No
It's
doubt.
like, so put your, just put your money, behind the things that are going to, matter to you, and that those people are going to, help you fight the good fight. But all right. So now shifting gears, hard transition. Last one. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I guess, do you have any adventure hunts coming up? Like, are you I know you're going to Colorado here, like, and that's more of like a business trip, with a little bit of fun. But I'm just curious if you have any type of adventure hunts that you want to go on, like, whether it's an elk hunt or whatever the case might be. And if not, if there's nothing in the works, then it's fine, obviously. But I want to get a sense of like what your bucket list hunts are, like what type of hunts, if you could go do any type of hunts, like what is the thing you want to go do the most?
Dude, I'm pretty fortunate to right here in my home state.
Michigan's pretty baller, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, we got like 7.5 million acres of public land, and a lot of it's big woods and swamp and pristine whitetail habitat, and it's gotten a bad rap. And I think part of it is just because people have watched deer hunting TV and they want to set up properties with box blinds and food plots and think that big old bucks are going to walk out in front of them in a green field in the middle of the day and they're going to shoot them. Dude, if that's your approach, you're going to fall short, and you're going to have to move and go to a different state.
Right.
But if you're willing to work for it, and you're willing to, apply some of the education that's available now about deer hunting via platforms like the Hunting Beast and guys like John Eberhart, I'm sure there's other ones.
The Hunting
those are
Public guys, those dudes are killer.
Yeah. You can get after it and you can get into some nice deer. And for me, I bought a frame pack this year, and I am really, really looking forward to just going a little farther off the grid and getting into some habitat that I feel is not being encroached upon by other hunters. And I get to do that right here in my home state. And this fall, I'm going to be doing a lot of that, where we're just backpacking in with a tent and some food and coffee and a stove, and staying in for a day or two and doing like the backcountry style hunting, but for whitetail. And then, I'm just limited, right? I got to find the balance right now. I got a full-time job and a family to take care of and all responsibilities. So I can't just like take off and go wherever and do whatever. So right now that's kind of my stepping stone. And then, maybe next year I'll get to move up into the UP and do some of that, where there's places in the UP where you can get 8 miles from a road. So right. For me, that's 8 miles. Like, that's a little bit of a car drive.
Yeah.
Let alone walking through a swamp with a frame pack on your back.
Right.
And so my progression is probably that. I'm getting more and more interested with traveling out of state to maybe some more western areas. I really would like to go to Colorado and do an over-the-counter elk tag, whether it's a bull or a cow. I don't much care. A friend of mine shot an elk here in Michigan a couple of years ago, and I had helped him butcher it. We did the whole thing in my garage, so I had amount of elk meat for half the year, and that kind of sold me on the whole elk thing. When I'm in Colorado here the end of July, I'm going to be doing some hiking and some scouting, and my intentions are to revisit that and do an elk hunt. But man, at the tippy top of my list for things that I want to do right now as far as hunts go is I'd love to go to Saskatchewan and do a deer hunt, man. The big woods, nasty, heavy bodied, big chocolate horned whitetail. That is all me, man. Like I'm all in on that. So that's probably one of the things at the top of my list right now, that like when I get to go and do that,
nice,
I'll be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that'd be a killer hunt, man. Like that what's the area? I think it's up in the UP. What's the wilderness area up there that's like pristine in Michigan? That's just like I can't remember what it's called now for the life of me.
The whole UP is pretty crazy. I mean, there's chunks of state forest that are 250,000 acres. And then the next chunk down the road 10 miles is 100,000 acres. And then there's another chunk that's 250,000 acres. I mean, there is some big expansive tracts of public land up there. So, it's I think it's intimidating for some people, certainly. Like I said, it's kind of why I'm getting my feet wet here, going a mile or two,
right?
So that when I do go up there and I do decide to go in 4 miles or 5 miles, that I don't feel completely green and I'm a little bit used to it, and that's going to help me when I go to travel out west, and hiking into the mountains and doing, staying overnight, and then I don't know how a Saskatchewan hunt. I think when you travel up to Canada, I'm pretty sure you got to be tied in with an outfitter and whatnot. You're not going up there doing it like all DIY or whatever. But
right,
gonna
take a walkabout.
That landscape up there, every time I see it on TV, is very representative of the landscape that I hunt in northern Michigan. The way it looks with like the aspen, poplar, and dense forest, and the only difference is they got a bunch of 300-pound giant deer walking around the size of cattle. So
that's right. Yeah, man. Dude, out west, it's just I will be looking forward to when you get an opportunity to go out there and hunt, because that's just like it's mind changing for sure. It's like everything from like the landscape to the animals are just. I mean, it's just you're. Like when you're elk hunting, it's just like they're like prehistoric freaks. You know what I mean? It's like they're monsters. They're beasts.
Oh yeah.
And the terrain is just insane. It's just how expansive like the area is, and it's like you just go for days and just not run into anything that looks modern at all. You know what I mean? It's really cool. I think for me, man, like what I want to do is, I don't have a species in mind necessarily, or even an area in mind. It's more about like the challenge, I guess, of the hunt. It's like I have this like urge now to like do something that's dangerous. You know what I mean? Where there's like an element of risk involved.
Sure.
You know, I do want to make it back to Alaska because I've hunted Alaska once and I'd love to go back there. I've always kind of joked, but not really, with my wife that I want to do an Alaskan brown bear hunt with a bow. I don't know that I'll ever get to do that in my lifetime because those things are ridiculously expensive. But something, when I say like risk, like something like that, to where it's like it's off grid, it's, you know, there's a chance to lose life or limb.
Sure.
Type of thing, you know what I mean? To where it's like you got to really get your shit together, not just, you know, your hunting shit together, but also, you know, physically your shit together, because it's going to be a demanding experience. I just think there's something like, you know, I don't know, this is kind of weird, I guess kind of weird, but there's like almost like this purification through pain type of thing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where the more challenging the hunt, like even if you don't kill, you come out the other side and you're like, you look back on it and it's like it had a profound impact on you.
No doubt. I mean, it changed a lot of stuff for me when I started integrating the Western style hunting into the way I hunt here, by just staying a night in a tent, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you do that for a couple nights and you're cold and you're wet and you can't get warm, and then you come home and then you take a hot shower and then you sit down on a leather couch and drink a glass of wine and talk to your wife, and it's just like, holy cow, man, this is like you know what I mean? Like it resets you. You know, you lose appreciation for the things that you have because you have them at your convenience all the time. You take that stuff away from you, you unplug, you go be cold and miserable for a couple days, and then you come back and it's just like it's all so good again.
Yeah, for sure. Damn, man. Well, we've been at this for like 2 hours, dude. I still have to pack because I'm headed to the family property after work tomorrow on Friday, and am going back to do some spraying to start getting ready for some fall plots, and have to pull some camera cards and do all that kind of fun stuff. So unless there's anything else you think we forgot to cover, I think we can go ahead and wrap this jam up.
No, man, I think you nailed it, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm sitting here staring at my frame pack and a pile of gear I'm loading up, and I'm out of here early in the morning. We got a wedding in northern Michigan tomorrow, and then Saturday I'm going to be doing some scouting, and Sunday I'm going to be doing some scouting up there and prepping some spots and hanging some trail cameras. So we're thinking alike, man. Nice.
Well, before I let you go, if you wouldn't mind, man, let folks out there know where they can find out more about you and the Deer Hunter podcast.
DeerHunterPodcast.com. It's all goes back there. Easiest way to listen is iTunes and Stitcher, on Google Play. We got some videos up on YouTube. We got some scouting videos up there. We did a workshop with Dan Infault over the winter, which are worth watching. Just some short 3, 4, and 5 minute clips. But DeerHunterPodcast.com is where you can find it all.
Awesome, man. Hey, well, thanks for hopping on, dude. Always a good time whenever you and I get a chance to talk. So appreciate you jumping on, and already looking forward to the next time we get to connect, man. So I'll be talking to you soon, buddy.
Sounds good, Clint. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. We'd like to thank Kevin for joining. Be sure to check out his Deer Hunter podcast and give him a follow on Instagram and Facebook as well. We'd, of course, like to take a moment to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And before we shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners that continue to help us make this podcast possible. Wicked Tree Gear, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Trophy Ridge, Ozonics, Obsession Bows, Tecumani Seed, Glacier Coolers, Ramcat Broadheads, and Trophy Taker Rests. And until next time, we'll see y'all.
On my heels, makes me proud, makes me steal. I could show you through the door. I ain't welcome anymore. A long time coming, if it all. It takes a special knowing to colorful. Damaged heads, broken letters. Rationalize yourself in numbers, but I